Welcome back, everybody. Today, we're going deep into the world of Robert Bigelow.
Oh, yeah. Robert Bigelow.
Not the Robert Bigelow that you might be thinking of.
Not the hotel magnate.
No, not the hotel.
Not the space entrepreneur.
Tycoon, not the space guy.
Yeah.
We're talking about Robert Bigelow, the UFO enthusiast, the guy who's been pursuing this for his whole entire life.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
I mean, when you think about it, what's so interesting about Bigelow's story is this lifelong pursuit stems from this really intense experience that he had as a child.
Oh.
I mean, imagine just being a young kid and seeing something that just completely reshapes your whole worldview.
Yeah.
That's exactly what happened to him.
That's what happened to him. So 1947.
In 1947.
Same year as the Roswell incident.
Yeah.
His grandparents are driving
along this desert highway when all of a sudden their entire windshield is filled with what they believe is a plane engulfed in flames.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah.
Scary.
But as they get closer, it becomes clear that this is no ordinary plane.
Okay.
The object is described as being incredibly large.
Large.
And completely silent.
What?
And just as quickly as it appeared,
wow,
it shoots off into the distance, leaving them completely bewildered.
I mean, it's
wild.
I mean, that's gonna...
You got to think.
You got to think that's gonna make you...
Yeah, it really, I mean, for him,
right.
This event sparked a lifelong fascination with UFOs.
Absolutely.
Which would eventually lead him to not only build space habitats with Bigelow Aerospace, but also establish the Bigelow Institute for Consciousness Studies, or BICS.
Okay, so that's a big...
It's a big jump.
Right, from childhood UFO sighting to building space habitats and then diving into the world of consciousness studies.
It really is, and it speaks to, I think, the depth of his curiosity and how this initial event really shaped his trajectory.
So for our listeners who might not be familiar with BICS, what is this institute all about?
Sure. So BICS is dedicated to exploring one of humanity's biggest questions.
Okay.
Does consciousness survive bodily death?
Oh, wow.
Bigelow has invested significant resources into investigating this.
I mean, that's a question.
It is a big question.
Yeah.
Funding research into near-death experiences, psychic phenomena, and even the possibility of communicating with those who have passed on.
So you're saying he's trying to scientifically prove the existence of an afterlife?
Well, I think it goes beyond simply proving or disproving the afterlife.
Okay.
He seems to be driven by a desire to understand the nature of consciousness itself. You know, where does it come from? What happens to it when we die?
Right.
Are there other realms of existence beyond our current perception?
So we're talking UFOs, advanced technology, and the possibility of life after death. This is definitely...
This is a deep dive.
A deep dive into the deep end.
Yeah.
I think so. So before we go any further, I think it's important to understand the context of how public perception of UFOs has evolved over time.
Right. I mean, for decades, this subject was taboo.
Yeah.
You know, often met with ridicule.
Yeah.
Admitting you'd seen a UFO was basically a social death sentence.
Yeah. I mean, it's fascinating how something that was once relegated to the fringes of science has now become a mainstream topic of discussion.
Exactly.
So what do you think caused this shift?
Well, I think a number of factors contributed.
Okay.
A pivotal moment was the 2017 New York Times article featuring Commander David Fravor's account of the Tic Tac UFO encounter. This wasn't some blurry photo or questionable eyewitness testimony.
Right.
This was a highly trained pilot. Describing an encounter with an object that defied our understanding of physics.
And that really did.
That was a turning point.
I mean, it shifted the conversation.
Absolutely.
Right.
It forced people, even those in power, to acknowledge that something strange was happening in our skies.
And of course, we have the Phoenix Lights.
The Phoenix Lights event.
Event of 1997. Where thousands of people witnessed a massive structured craft hovering over the city.
Yeah, and even
the governor.
The governor at the time, Fife Symington.
Fife Symington later admitted to seeing it.
Yeah.
So, I mean,
these events
coupled with an increasing number of credible witnesses coming forward.
Right.
Including military personnel and government officials.
It made it really hard.
It made it increasingly difficult.
To just dismiss this.
To dismiss it as just...
Oh, it's a weather balloon.
Misidentified objects or weather anomaly.
Right. Right. Exactly.
Yeah.
So this brings us to another fascinating figure in Bigelow's journey.
Yeah.
Bob Lazar.
Bob Lazar.
Now, Lazar's...
A controversial figure.
A controversial figure. He claims to have worked on reverse engineering alien technology at Area 51's S4 facility.
Okay. Now, wait a second. For our listeners who might not be familiar with Area 51 and this S4 facility, could you give us just a little background?
Sure. Area 51 is a highly classified U.S. military base.
Okay.
Located in the Nevada desert.
Right.
And its secretive nature has fueled countless conspiracy theories.
Yes.
Particularly surrounding the possibility of the government studying recovered alien spacecraft.
Yeah.
The S4 facility is allegedly a top-secret section within Area 51, where Lazar claims to have worked.
Okay, so Lazar is claiming he saw and worked on alien spacecraft. Pretty wild story.
Yeah, it is.
Does Bigelow believe him?
Well, Bigelow has stated that he wouldn't bet against the truth of Lazar's claims.
So he's saying he thinks it's possible.
Yeah, he thinks it's possible.
Wow.
And he was so intrigued by Lazar's story that he actually visited S4 with him.
Oh, wow.
And journalist George Knapp.
Okay.
Hoping to catch a glimpse of something extraordinary.
So a billionaire, a controversial physicist claiming to have worked on alien spacecraft, and a journalist walk into the Nevada desert. What could possibly go wrong?
Well, as you can imagine, that trip didn't exactly go as planned.
Yeah.
There's even a humorous anecdote about them releasing a Mylar balloon.
A Mylar balloon.
A Mylar balloon, fearing it might drift towards Area 51 and attract unwanted attention.
So where does Bigelow's interest in consciousness studies fit into all this? Seems like kind of a leap from UFOs in Area 51.
It might seem that way, but Bigelow sees a clear connection.
Okay.
He's concerned about the rapid advancement of technology without a corresponding growth in our spiritual and ethical understanding.
Okay.
He envisions a scenario where we develop incredibly powerful technologies without the wisdom to use them responsibly.
Yeah, that's a scary thought. I mean, it's like
it is.
We're handing kids.
It's like giving incredibly powerful tools to a species that's still figuring out how to get along with itself.
Right. And this concern ties directly into his fascination with consciousness surviving bodily death. Yeah.
It's as if he's searching for a counterbalance to the potentially destructive forces of unbridled technological advancement.
Okay.
Perhaps he believes that understanding the true nature of consciousness might lead us to a more enlightened path.
It's a very thought-provoking concept. So how does Bigelow propose we even begin to measure something as intangible as the afterlife?
Well, he suggests applying the beyond a reasonable doubt standard from the legal system to evidence for the afterlife.
Okay, but how can you apply a legal standard to something that's inherently spiritual and subjective?
Well, that's the challenge. And Bigelow acknowledges that there's no concrete proof. He points to things like near-death experiences, psychic phenomena, and even automatic writing as potential evidence for consciousness survival.
Wait, automatic writing. For those of us who might not be familiar with that, what is it and how does it relate to consciousness surviving death?
Sure. Automatic writing is the act of writing.
Okay.
Without conscious thought. As if the words are being dictated by an external source.
Oh, wow.
Some believe this source could be a discarnate entity, or even a part of the writer's own subconscious that has access to information beyond their normal awareness.
So how does Bigelow reconcile his belief in these paranormal phenomena with his background in science and technology?
Well, I don't think he necessarily sees a conflict between the two.
Okay.
He approaches these topics with a scientific mindset, seeking evidence and patterns. But he's also open to the possibility that our current scientific understanding is incomplete. That there might be forces at play that we haven't yet discovered or explained.
So he's had some personal experiences that have shaped his beliefs.
Oh, yeah.
Like what?
Well, one that stands out is his experience with a poltergeist.
Poltergeist?
On Halloween Eve.
On Halloween.
Picture this. A sudden, inexplicable crashing sound in his home.
Oh.
Like hundreds of candies.
Oh.
Suddenly hitting the hardwood floor. He goes to investigate, finds nothing out of place, and is left with no logical explanation.
That's freaky. It's one thing to hear about these kinds of experiences, but when it happens to someone like Bigelow, it makes you wonder.
Yeah, it makes you think.
Yeah. And it gets even more interesting when you consider Bigelow's experience with a psychic medium.
Right.
Now, this wasn't just any reading.
It was a carefully controlled session.
Okay.
Where Bigelow only responded with yes or no.
Wow.
To avoid leading the medium.
So even under those conditions, the medium was still able to provide accurate information.
That's what he claims.
That's a bold claim.
It is.
Yeah.
The medium accurately recounted A detail about music played for his late wife.
Wow.
A detail he had completely forgotten until later verifying it with his granddaughter.
That's a powerful anecdote. I mean, it certainly raises questions about the potential validity of psychic abilities.
It does.
And to add another layer to this, Joe Rogan, a self-proclaimed skeptic, was present for this discussion.
That's right.
I imagine the back and forth,
You can imagine it.
back and forth between them. With Bigelow's belief clashing with Rogan's skepticism.
Yeah,
It's that tension between belief and skepticism,
absolutely.
between the known and the unknown,
Yeah,
that makes this deep dive so fascinating.
it does.
So where do we go from here?
Well, from here, we delve deeper into Bigelow's beliefs,
Okay.
exploring his thoughts on everything,
All right.
from the potential for corporate entities to possess recovered alien technology to his own personal experiences that have shaped his worldview.
Okay. This is definitely a journey that's pushing the boundaries of what we think we know about reality.
Absolutely.
We'll be back in a moment to explore more of Bigelow's world.
Welcome back to our deep dive into the mind of Robert Bigelow. Before the break, we were discussing Bigelow's experience with a psychic medium and the detail about the music that was played for his late wife. What ultimately convinced him that this medium was legitimate? Well, as you pointed out, anyone would be skeptical, especially given the potential for these types of readings to be staged or manipulated. But Bigelow insists the information he received was far too specific, too intensely personal to be explained away as mere trickery. He emphasizes that he maintained strict protocols during the session, responding only with yes or no throughout the entire process. This, he argues, eliminates the possibility of him unintentionally leading the medium.
So it seems like he's trying to preemptively address any skepticism, acknowledging the potential for these readings to be faked, while also holding on to his belief in the authenticity of his own experience. What's interesting is how this conversation unfolded with Joe Rogan. As a self-proclaimed skeptic, I imagine Rogan must have pushed back, challenging Bigelow to provide more concrete evidence.
You're absolutely right. Rogan, ever the pragmatist, pressed Bigelow for verifiable proof, emphasizing the need for scientific rigor in evaluating such extraordinary claims. Bigelow, on the other hand, argued that there's more to reality than what can be measured and quantified, suggesting that some phenomena might simply defy explanation through conventional scientific methods.
Yeah, that's a debate that's been raging for centuries, the tension between faith and reason, between what we feel to be true and what we can empirically prove. I imagine many of our listeners are grappling with similar questions as well.
I'd say that's a safe assumption. We all want to believe in the extraordinary, but we also have a responsibility to be discerning to make sure we're not simply fooling ourselves.
Speaking of extraordinary, let's shift gears a bit and talk about Bigelow's conviction that some corporations might possess recovered alien technology, possibly even an entire spacecraft. How does he justify that belief?
Well, Bigelow points to anecdotal evidence, including stories from individuals who claim to have firsthand knowledge of such events. He recounts a particularly striking story about a pilot who allegedly flew wreckage out of Roswell. According to Bigelow, the pilot's wife later confirmed that the wreckage included evidence of extraterrestrial beings.
Okay, so now we're stepping into some serious conspiracy theory territory. If true, that would be absolutely earth-shattering.
Right. What's intriguing is how Bigelow frames the role of these corporations. He suggests that they're not necessarily driven by malicious intent in withholding this information, but are acting out of a sense of responsibility. The idea is that they're waiting until humanity's technological understanding has advanced enough to make sense of what they've discovered.
So it's like a cosmic waiting game. These corporations are acting as gatekeepers, protecting us from knowledge that we might not be ready for.
That's the theory. It certainly raises questions about the pace of technological advancement, about whether we're truly prepared for the implications of encountering advanced extraterrestrial technology. It also makes you wonder about the ethical implications of withholding such potentially transformative knowledge from the public.
Yeah, it's a lot to unpack. And this brings us back to Bob Lazar and his claims about element 115. A substance, he says, can bend gravity. That concept has been explored in science fiction for decades, but Lazar presents it as a reality.
Yes, and what's even more fascinating is that element 115, once purely theoretical, was actually confirmed by particle collider experiments back in 2013.
So maybe Lazar wasn't so crazy after all. Imagine if it's true. We're talking about technology that could revolutionize space travel, energy production, our entire understanding of physics. It's like stepping straight out of the horse and buggy era and into the world of Star Trek.
Exactly. But as we've seen Bigelow's interests extend beyond the material world, he's equally fascinated by the metaphysical. by the big questions surrounding consciousness, the origin of the universe, and the possibility of a higher power.
It's interesting how his exploration seems to weave together these seemingly disparate threads. UFOs, advanced technology, consciousness, study, spirituality. It's like he's trying to piece together a grand puzzle, one that encompasses both the scientific and the spiritual.
I think that's a great way to put it. And one of the most compelling aspects of his perspective is his insistence that the universe is so magnificent, so profoundly awe-inspiring, that even the existence of a higher power wouldn't diminish its wonder.
So he's encouraging us to embrace the mystery, to acknowledge that we may never have all the answers, but to never stop asking questions.
Precisely. He seems to find the vastness of the unknown exhilarating rather than daunting. And this brings us to his perspective on the Big Bang Theory. In light of recent challenges to this model, are you surprised by his stance?
Well, considering his openness to unconventional ideas, I'm actually not surprised at all that he expresses skepticism towards the idea of a finite universe with a definitive beginning and end. Instead, he seems to lean towards the concept of an endless expanse of space and time, something that stretches beyond our current capacity to measure or even comprehend.
You're spot on. Instead of a universe that's like a ticking time bomb winding down from a specific starting point, he envisions something more akin to an eternal dance, a constant ebb and flow of energy and matter, perhaps even a cycle of expansion and contraction.
That's a pretty mind-bending concept. The universe is a breathing entity, inhaling and exhaling on a cosmic scale. And if we're talking about mind-bending concepts, we can't overlook his thoughts on black holes as potential gateways to other universes.
Ah, yes, the multiverse theory. Are we stepping a little too far into science fiction territory here?
Perhaps. But as Bigelow points out, even the most outlandish-sounding theories might hold a kernel of truth. We're still grappling with the mysteries of dark matter and dark energy, which make up the vast majority of the universe's mass and energy. It's a humbling reminder of how much we still don't know about the cosmos.
Yeah, it's that very lack of knowledge that seems to fuel Bigelow's curiosity. He's driven to seek out new perspectives, to challenge conventional thinking, and to always remain open to the possibility that reality might be far stranger and more wondrous than we've ever imagined.
And that, I think, is what makes this deep dive so compelling. It's a journey that takes us beyond the realm of facts and figures into the realm of possibilities. We'll be back in a moment to continue our exploration.
Welcome back to our deep dive into the world of Robert Bigelow. Before the break, we were getting into some pretty mind-bending concepts, from corporations potentially having alien technology to Bigelow's thoughts on the Big Bang and multiverses. It is quite the whirlwind of ideas, isn't it?
Yeah.
And what's really striking is how Bigelow always seems to come back to the potential consequences of our rapidly advancing technology, especially with AI.
Yeah, he seems to be warning us that we might be getting too focused on technological progress and that might come at the expense of, our ethical and spiritual development.
Exactly. He even goes so far as to compare us to the Klingons from Star Trek.
Oh, wow.
Technologically advanced, but also pretty hostile and destructive.
Yeah, I see what he's saying. Intelligence without wisdom can lead to some pretty bad outcomes.
Right. That's his point.
Yeah. Are we heading toward a future where technology surpasses our control?
Well, that's a question we all have to grapple with. And
Right.
Bigelow doesn't claim to have all the answers,
Right.
but he really wants us to think about the choices we're making.
To be mindful.
Yeah, exactly.
It sounds like he's advocating for a more balanced approach, one that emphasizes spiritual growth alongside those technological advancements.
I think that's a really good way to put it. He stresses the importance of having a connection to something bigger than ourselves,
Right.
whether it's a spiritual belief system, a sense of interconnectedness with all living things, or even just a deep appreciation for the beauty and mystery of the universe.
It's like he's calling for a more holistic idea of progress, one that includes not only our scientific achievements, but our ethical and spiritual evolution as well.
Exactly. And I think that's what makes Bigelow's journey so captivating.
Yeah.
He's not just a successful businessman or a UFO enthusiast. He's a seeker, someone who asks these profound questions about reality, consciousness, and our place in the universe.
Yeah, his journey is pretty amazing, from building space habitats to investigating the afterlife, from exploring the potential of alien technology to contemplating the vastness of the cosmos. It really makes you think about expanding your own perspective and embracing the unknown and never stopping asking those big questions.
Absolutely. It's all about questioning, exploring, and seeking to understand.
It has been an amazing deep dive into the mind of Robert Bigelow, a man driven by curiosity, a thirst for knowledge, and a profound belief in the extraordinary mineral sulfur.
And he encourages us to look beyond the ordinary, challenge what we think we know, and be open to the possibility that reality is much more expansive and wondrous than we could ever imagine.
Thank you all for joining us on this incredible journey. Until next time, keep looking up, keep asking those questions, and keep diving deep.